Pat McFadden's with us this morning, chatting to him in just a second after we hear from his boss about the situation in Syria.
It's very early days at the moment. We do need a political solution to this, and that's what we're talking to regional allies about. It is a good thing that Assad is gone, a very good thing for the Syrian people. What we must also ensure as we go through this, the rejection of terrorism and violence, that civilians are protected, minorities are protected, and that can only be through a political process. That's what we're talking to allies in the region about at the moment.
Morning, Mr. McFadden. What do we know about the situation in Syria right now?
Well, it is very uncertain. We know that a brutal regime has fallen. We know this has been bad for Russia and Iran, who were the people propping up that regime and decided that either they wouldn't or couldn't prop up any longer. And the future is very uncertain. This group that's taken over has previously been affiliated with al-Qaeda. The leader, Mr. Jalani, has been saying different things to that. Recently, he's been saying he'll respect citizens' rights and minorities and so on. So I think there'll be a combination of relief, but also great uncertainty as to what the future will bring.
This rebel group, Hayat Tahrir al Sham, known as HTS, it is a proscribed organisation here in the UK. Will you have to look at that again now?
Yeah, we will. And we'll consider that. And I think it will partly depend on what happens in terms of how that group behaves now. But I think countries around the world who prescribed this, it's not just the UK, the United States, European countries as well, I think probably will look at that now and see what's going to happen in the future. But we've not made any decisions on that over the weekend. And
how long will it take for you to make a decision?
Well, it won't take that long. I think we'll need to do it quite quickly.
Are you happy with the Assad family being granted asylum in Moscow?
Oh, well, that's a decision between them and the Russian authorities. Russia propped up the regime. If you'd asked me which country will he flee to, Russia or Iran were probably the two that would have been the highest on the list.
I asked you that because obviously I want to know what you think about Asma Assad. She's 49, she's British originally. Her parents, I believe, still live in Acton. They have 3 children. Could you foresee a situation where they would be allowed to come to the UK?
Well, no such request been received,
no,
as I understand it. Well, I can't say how that would be.
How does it make you feel a little uneasy that that might possibly be the case?
Well, I think given the background of the regime, it does, but I can't speak to anyone's individual rights. If somebody's a British passport holder, as I believe his wife is, but right now they are in Russia. They've sought refuge in the country that propped up the regime, and we've not received any indication of anything different. OK,
that takes me to the refugee camps on the border up in the east there, the Al-Hol and the Roj camps, which are used to house refugees, amongst them Shamima Begum. We know that she wants to come back to the UK. Might you look at that again? Well, it's important to understand the group that runs the area where those camps are is not the same as the group that's taken over in Damascus. Those are Kurdish forces there. But that group in Damascus is looking to take over the country. They're looking to take over the country. And they're likely to say, we don't want these refugees. It is difficult to say at the moment what will happen to those camps. All of this is very uncertain at the moment. We just had a clip from the Prime Minister. He said it was early days. It really is. So, I mean, no one can say for sure what's going to happen to those camps right now, or indeed whether this new group will be able to take over the whole country. That's not certain either. Could you foresee a situation where you may look again at Shamima Begum coming back to the UK? No plans to do that right now. OK. The United States, we know, has bombed some targets inside Syria over the last 24 hours. Israel has done the same. Where does that leave the UK? Do you fully support the action that they have been taking? What I think Israel's doing is making sure its position in the Golan is secure. One of the things to note about this has partly happened because of Israeli action against Iranian proxies around the region, and that has left Iran weakened, and that is partly why the Assad regime has fallen. So the action that Israel has taken over the last few days will be to make sure that its position in the Golan is secure. So that's supported by the UK? We will always support Israel's right to defend itself and make itself secure. But we also want to see in Syria
whether the new leader, Mr. Jalani, lives by the words he said about respecting citizens, respecting minorities. There's a Christian minority, there are other minorities there. Will their freedoms, their religious rights be respected in the future? That's not certain at the moment, but that's very much what we hope for.
You must be very concerned, though, looking from here to Syria this morning, given what happened in Iraq after the downfall of the regime there, creating a vacuum where terrorism thrived.
Well, no one can be sure of what the future is. It's interesting, in the last couple of days, I've been hearing reports of people who'd left Syria going back in from neighbouring countries. Now, I don't know whether that will be a pattern that's sustained. Maybe other people who are also trying to leave. But I think until we know the future, you can't really give a verdict on what this new regime is going to be like.
Fair to say it's an uncertain time?
It's an uncertain time. We know a brutal regime has fallen. We don't yet know the character of the regime that's going to take its place.
OK. Let's turn to domestic matters, if we may. Storm Darragh did its worst over the weekend. Hundreds of thousands of people without power, including our house for a while.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's fine. We managed. I lived through the miners' strike in the 70s, so you remember when we had no power then as well. I'm sure you remember that too. Sort of damage that it's created. What's the government going to do to help people?
Well, it's very rare to receive what we called a red weather warning at the weekend. That
Threat to life.
Threat to life, winds of over 90 miles per hour. We had to issue the emergency alert to 3 million people on Friday night. I believe about 1.5 million people have been reconnected over the weekend. The latest figures I have were that as of last night, there was still 100,000 people without power. We hope to get them reconnected as soon as possible. I'm told that should happen over the next couple of days and get everybody back on the power grid. It's another reminder of how powerful these storms can be. 2 people were also killed over the weekend in different parts of the country. So the power of the weather can be very extreme. And, you know, I just want to thank all the workers.
I was going to say, shout out to the National Grid guys up those poles.
The guys up the poles reconnecting people, the people helping people if there was any danger of floods. You know, when something like this happens, it's those frontline workers that get out there in the most terrible weather and try to help people. So a big thank you to them. And
so say all of us. Why are you picking a fight with the civil servants?
I'm praising the civil servants today. I think we've got a lot of good people caught in bad systems. And the point I'm making today is that we've got huge change in the private sphere. If we think about all the companies we use and rely on, Airbnb or Spotify or WhatsApp, didn't even exist 20 years ago. They've changed our lives. Has the way the government's changed? Has the way that it thinks about delivering services changed at the speed of the private sphere? It hasn't. So we've got to take the learning from what's happening in the private world.
Give me an example.
And apply it. Well, I'll give you an example. When they started developing the universal credit system, they spent hundreds of millions of pounds doing it in the old Whitehall way. You know, you issue a policy paper, you have lots of committees, lots of meetings, they got nowhere. What they did after that was they took the process out of the department, put together a small team of about 30 people, policy people, tech people, frontline workers, said, let's do this small. Don't have to do it for the whole country at once. Let's test this in a really small way and see if it works. They did that in Sutton, and then they rolled it out a bit more and a bit more. It's what we call the test and learn approach, where you don't have to design everything from scratch. You test, you learn, you allow for some failure in the system. You don't get panicked by that. You learn from that. I want to see that approach adopted more in policy in the future.
Final thought. Suella Braverman's husband's decided that he wants to join Reform. I wonder what the conversation would have been like in their house.
I don't know. It wouldn't happen in mine.
I set you up for that. I set him up, you knock him down. It's good to see you. Thank you.